Welcome to the Kennedy Report. I'm Kennedy Hall. The SSPX debate is over and tradition is rising. I'm going to talk about that quickly today as I jump on here. But first, please like this video, subscribe to this channel. You know the deal. Links in the description, so on and so forth. Support the channel. Thank you for all your support. So the SSPX has been debated pretty hotly for the last, well, basically for a while, but really intensely since Pope Francis started putting out documents, or at least the Vatican did under his approval, sort of restricting the Latin Mass or giving permission to restrict it. You know the story. It's been told many times in other places. This has brought up a real conundrum for a lot of people about the Society of St. Pius X, because it has been believed for a long time by many people that the Society of St. Pius X was in a sort of schismatic situation. Marcel Lefebvre should not have done what he did. Because there were other traditional permissions available, the Fraternity of St. Peter, Christ the King, you know the deal, your diocesan traditional Latin Mass. But as soon as those started getting taken away and suppressed, all of a sudden people who had been very anti-Society of St. Pius X, or at least very skeptical for a lot of years, all of a sudden kind of had their own wake-up moment and said to themselves, it doesn't seem right to me in my Catholic sense that they're taking away this treasure, this pearl of great price, which is traditional faith. And they're giving me this thing that I've shielded myself and my children from because I know it's bad for all these years. And now I'm in a position where I'm going to have to make a decision to do something that I don't feel comfortable with, that I don't think is good for my faith, the faith of my children. And I'm going to have to try to consider this question of obedience. I think a lot of people have come to the conclusion that the Society of St. Pius X has been strongly vindicated as a result of this. Aside from all the controversy, aside from all the debates that have happened over the years, this moment that we're living in right now has really opened the eyes for a lot of people who have just, instead of thinking with their citations from various documents and trying to sort of spin themselves into a narrative where, SSPX bad and FSSP good and that sort of thing, I think they've got to the point where they've said, I'm a Catholic. I have Catholic sense. I know Catholic things. When I go to Mass there, the new Mass, whatever, that doesn't feel Catholic to me. And I'm not just someone who's, aesthetically kind of a snob, or it's not just sort of a personal preference. It's a real deeply rooted understanding of the faith. Well, on the other hand, they go to their traditional Mass and they go, yeah, this is the faith of my ancestors. And this is more than just lace and incense. This is the sacrifice of Calvary reenacted and represented to me in a way that is in conjunction with the faith of my ancestors. And it's something that I can't ignore. And it's really changed my soul. This is what happens to people after they go to tradition for a long time. They actually become recalibrated. People have been recalibrated, and they've realized you can't just take that away. You can't just take away the air that I breathe and say, well, this is for your own good because we have to move with the council. There must be more to it. Anyway, that argument makes a lot of sense for a lot of people, but there are a select few apologists out there who for some reason have made it their mission. And I'm not going to name them because I'm not going to waste my time. But there's a select few apologists out there who have made it their mission to really go after the Society of St. Pius X and to really go after people who do support the Society of St. Pius X. And I've been on the end of that myself. But I find this very curious. And the reason I entitled this "The Debate About the SSPX is Over" is because it is. As far as their being Catholic and not being in schism. Whatever you may think about the controversy of the past, since 2009, it has been, and that is 13 years ago at this point. Goodness gracious, 13 years. It has been official. This is, again, we're not even doing any apologetics for the pre-2009 time. We don't even have to talk about the 1988 consecrations. We don't have to get into any of that. It is as clear as anything in the church that the Roman pontiff at the time, Pope Benedict XVI, commissioned and approved acknowledgement through documentation that he wrote himself and had other people write. And I've talked about this at length. I'll put a link to that video in the description of this video. It has been clear that there is no schism. It has been clear that there is no excommunication. Whatever you may say about the society, their irregular status, and so on and so forth, people out there saying that they're in schism or schismatic are saying things that the church is not saying. And they shouldn't be listened to because they're foolish. I don't think they're of goodwill, to be honest. I don't know how, let's think about the logic here for a second of the anti-Society of St. Pius X argument. And I mean this. The Roman Catholic Pope, Pope Francis, has made it very clear that the Society of St. Pius X have a recognized jurisdiction to perform a variety of sacraments. So does this mean that the Roman Catholic Pope is giving the schismatic SSPX faculties? And if that is the case, what does that mean? Well, it means one of two or three things. One, it means that they're not in schism because you don't give sacraments to schismatics. Secondly, it means that they could be schismatics and the Pope is out there giving sacraments to schismatics, which is a real emergency and crisis of faith, which ironically would justify Marcel Lefebvre's claims and the claims of the society since then that the church is in an emergency of faith because we have egregious things happening like the Pope giving sacraments to schismatics, which ironically would probably justify the SSPX, which would also mean that when they acted back when they did, they weren't actually acting in a schismatic way because the emergency already existed. A third option might be that people would take the Pope is not the true Pope stance, and that's a whole other conversation for another day. But really, you have to go through a lot of really illogical and insane hoops, jump through a lot of hoops to get to this point where you're going to still call the Society of St. Pius X schismatic. And if this is my opinion, and I don't care if I lose any supporters because I'm kind of tired of this nonsense, to be honest. I don't think anyone who watches my channel on a regular basis would be against the SSPX, otherwise you probably wouldn't watch it. But the apologists out there, excuse me, who are trying to weave these yarns of tales about, well, if you look at it this way, and in my experience, and according to this quote from so-and-so, the SSPX represents some sort of schismatic mentality and so on and so forth. What's wrong with you? I mean that. What's wrong with you? How schismatic of you. Shame on you. Shame on you for saying what the church does not say and putting it out as if people are supposed to believe it. Shame on you. Shame on you for going out there and confusing people. The amount of messages I get, and they'll say, well, I was really convinced by your thing, and I read this from Rome, but I saw so-and-so's podcast. It is ironic that the anti-SSPX crowd is out there saying that the Society of St. Pius X are schismatic, presumably because they don't obey Rome enough. Yet Rome has made it very clear that you can attend the SSPX with no sin, that they're not in schism because they aren't under any penalties, and therefore are just Catholic priests in the church with their irregular status, but irregular does not schismatic make. But you're out there telling people that they're schismatic. You are the one going against what Rome has made very clear. You are the one promoting division between fellow Catholics. You are the schismatic. Stop talking about this as if it's not a settled issue. Yes, the SSPX has an irregular canonical status. Well, we live in a time where, by the logic of the anti-SSPX apologists, the Pope is giving faculties to schismatics. How much more irregular could we get? Enough about that for a moment here, because I want to move on to the fact that another reason why I'm convinced that the debate about the SSPX is over is because tradition is rising. And here's what I mean by that. When the Mass was first taken away, the old Mass, the traditional Mass, when it was first taken away in the 1960s, 70s, and so forth, it was basically just done in a very, thief came in the middle of the night and sort of stole the thing. Everybody came back and it was pretty much gone. But since then, it's slowly come back, and that's because of Marcel Lefebvre. Now it's being taken away again. And what you see are marches. You see even networks like EWTN having commenters saying the Pope's probably not doing the right thing by saying this or doing this, which is very uncharacteristic for how networks like that have acted in the past. You see people who never in a million years thought they would be going to the SSPX showing up. I get messages all the time from people saying, I just can't believe my bishop did this, but my priest said that the SSPX is in schism and I can't go there. But I'm sorry, I just can't bring my kid to that Mass, so I'm going to go anyway. I get messages all the time from people saying my heart is broken because of what they're doing, taking away this, and I can't believe my bishop did this. People are at the position now where they recognize that the path forward in the church is to go backwards. Doesn't mean that everything was a golden age before. There were reforms that probably should have happened. As my friend Father Charles Murr said to me once, reforms needed to take place at the Second Vatican Council. They just had to take place in a different direction. I think that's correct. Things were not hunky-dory all before Vatican II. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a seismic shift after that was already in the works, of course. But tradition is rising. Catholics are marching around the world for their Mass. They're kneeling outside on the pavement as their priest celebrates Mass on the steps because the bishop says you can celebrate Mass on the steps of the church, but you can't go in. They're transforming gymnasiums into very wonderful chapels because they can't use their parish churches anymore. They're renting hotel rooms to have private masses. They're having masses at their houses, or the priest comes in their basement. This is not just society priests, by the way. This is happening with traditional priests all over. Trust me, I get messages about it all the time. The priests of the SSPX are being asked to go in all different direction. Bishops all over the world have employed the SSPX to do masses in their diocese, probably hundreds of them at this point. I know there's at least 50 in the United States alone. Tradition is rising. You see, the new Mass is not God's will. And what I mean by that is this. This isn't because I'm some sort of mystic, far from it. But I know what God's will is, because by their fruits you shall know them. If something is good fruit, it's from God. And if it's bad fruit, it's not from God. No good tree can bear bad fruit, and no bad tree can bear good fruit. The new Mass has been around for 50 or 60 years, and it's declining rapidly. You can say all you want about, well, it should just be done right. Well, you could follow the rubrics. Well, yeah, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but it's never been done. So whatever that paradigm is, it just doesn't work. Contraception, it runs amok in the traditional or in the new Mass communities, heresy of all types, a Lutheran spirit, and so on and so forth. And there are no vocations. There are exceptions, but the exceptions prove the rule. Yes, the, Companions of the Cross or the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal or something. Yes, they have vocations, but they prove the rule because exceptionally they actually have vocations, whereas countries like Ireland, which were historically was one of the most Catholic countries on earth, basically has no priests at this point, or is losing them at an alarming degree. Quebec is the same way. You know the story. The new Mass and its paradigm is not God's will because it's not Catholic. What I mean by that is it does not transmit a Catholic sense. When you go to the new Mass, you receive a Protestant understanding of the Mass. This is why Protestants love the new Mass. This is why many Anglican churches have essentially adopted the same rubrics. This is why Lutherans and Calvinists were used in consultation of creating the new Mass, or at least creating documents that led to the new Mass itself. People understand that it's not Catholic in their bones. They've been white-knuckling it, praying the rosary, kneeling for Holy Communion, even though their priest is yelling at them, looking at their old missals, filling in all the space that their children are not getting by catechizing them outside of school so they can undo the damage their kids get at the new Mass school. And you know the story. This is not God's will to live like this. It is not God's will that something that harms your Catholic faith and steals it from you is promulgated by the Catholic Church. How does that work as far as God's providence is concerned? I have no idea. But I'm a baptized Catholic. I'm a confirmed Catholic. And I know that I'm supposed to make witness to my faith. And I know that one thing is Catholic and one thing is not. I know the new ways lead away from the holy sacrifice of the Mass. I know the new ways lead away from the faith of all time, except in exceptional circumstances, which prove the rule. I know that the old ways lead to the faith, normally speaking. I know the old ways lead to vocations. I know the old ways lead to Catholic families. I know the old ways lead to big, open-to-life Catholic families. I know the old ways lead to a devotion to the Blessed Mother. I know the old ways lead to a devotion to the Holy Eucharist. I know these things because we see this. I don't have to be a theologian. I don't have to have some YouTube show where I pretend that I reasonably talk about theology. I just know this because I can attend and I can see with my own eyes. And I know that God's will is that you be saved, and whatever gets in the way of your salvation is not of God. It's pretty simple. The debate about the SSPX is over for many reasons, but one of them is because tradition is rising. Marcel Lefebvre has been vindicated. He was right to protest. He was right to resist, recognize the Pope for sure, but resist things that were harmful to the faith. He was right to say no to the quote-unquote conciliar church, Rome's term, not his. And he was right to say, we will hold the Mass of all time because I will hand on what I've received. Just like St. Paul said, hold fast to the traditions. So don't listen to those people out there trying to confuse you, saying you can't go to the SSPX, that they're in schism, because they're the schismatic ones telling you things the church doesn't say, and trying to divide you away from the members of the body of Christ, which you are unified to through your baptism and your faith. I hope this has been helpful. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. Until next time, this has been the Kennedy Report. God bless.